Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of TradesTalk. I'm your co host today, Justin White. And before we jump into today's episode, I'm excited to announce that the Disruptors community is now live. This community is built for landscape and trade professionals who want to take their business to the next level, build to an 8-figure size operation, and be surrounded by professionals who want to innovate and disrupt the status quo. If this sounds like something you're interested in, check our website out to get more information. Go to www.jwhitegroup.com to find out more information and how you can sign up. All right, let's jump into today's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Trades Talk. I'm your host today, Justin White, and we are diving into all things technology, labor efficiency, software. I've got some amazing guests on today that have some incredible industry experience. And, we're going to be talking a lot about disruption and innovation in the trades industry. So I've got Brian and Sean with me today from Top Green. Brian, I'm going to start with you. Why don't you give our guests a quick introduction of who you are and a little bit about your background within the landscape and overall trades industries.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate you inviting me on the call. I've been in the industry for longer than I'd like to admit, probably 45 plus years in the landscape industry. I did some HVAC stuff as a kid with my dad, so I do know that trade as well because my dad was an HVAC guy, so good stuff there as well. But spent 45 years in the industry running companies, consulting with companies. I got into the technology. I got the technology bug back around the turn of the century when I recognized that the company I was at wasn't using technology and felt we needed to use technology to get proper data to really grow and improve our business. And so since then, I went out and did some consulting, got approached by Kevin Kehoe and Mark Tipton to join them over at Aspire Software when we were nothing more than a storyboard. Spent my 9 or 10 years over there at Aspire growing that business until it became a part of Service Titan, who is absolutely the software in the trades industry, and was a great marriage joining with Service Titan back when we did. And so I decided to leave Aspire and get out back with the people, with the CEOs, the owners. And so I am now doing consulting to not only landscape companies, but also to companies like Top Green. I'm an advisor over there at Top Green, helping them understand kind of the needs of the landscaper and how this product can create efficiencies within their organizations and increase top line revenue as a result too. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, Justin. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Brian. Man, I am so excited to dive into some of that because the advisory level of going from software back into operations and CEOs, and then again now at Top Green, this is going to be a great conversation. Sean, so give us a little background of yourself and what you're doing right now over at Top Green.
Yeah, so I was with Brian at Aspire for a couple of years. Yeah, I ended over there. I've been in sales for the last, decade plus. I've sold everything from shoes and cell phones, right, up through. When you started seeing technology kind of come to the forefront for industries, right, and it started, in some machine trades and some others, you're looking for that next opportunity. And Aspire had came around and kind of told me a little bit about what they're doing, understanding it's a blue collar, hard work, right? Just get out there, put your nose to the grindstone. The world is changing, right? Now we need to get more out of what we're doing, that hard work that we put in. How do we get more out of it? So I was interested and I joined Aspire and I was there for a couple of years. After my time at Aspire, I went and worked for a guy actually in Long Island to help him kind of get Aspire up to speed for a little less than a year through some connections. Corey Beidler and Brian Moores. Brian reached out and presented this opportunity. And we hear it all the time, right? How do we connect sales to production to sales? How do we prove to our teams in the field that what we're selling is doable, right? How do we get them involved? How do we empower them? This is what we're doing, right? And it's exciting. I think I've always been a builder. I think we all are as a human race, right? We want to build. We want to see things grow out of the contributions that we make. And I'm excited to be on board here with Top Green, Brian, Sashi, and the team, and excited to see how we can impact the industry.
Yeah, well, I think that impact's going to be big. I've gotten to see a little bit of what your guys' product and services do and the back end of it, the idea behind it, the foundational level. It's an incredible part of what we do, which is efficiency in the field. And so, with that being said, why don't we give the guests a little bit of background about this company, Top Green, and exactly what do you guys do from a software, from a service, from an overall standpoint? How do you help the operators out there in the greater trades industry?
A little over a year and a half ago, I was approached by Sashi, there's a parent company over in Singapore called the Turing Group, who basically does work with AI in water management, and they also do stuff in Singapore with landscape, and it's really all about, again, AI efficiencies through water management, and now in the landscape. And Sashi came over, got my name through a couple of people that I know in the industry. They said, you got to connect with Brian. We sat down over lunch and talked about this idea of job planning, job scripting that has actually been out there for years and years and years, right? But it's always been a very manual process, right? It's send the guys out, get a base map for them, send them out, let them figure out or draw on a map how, where the 60-inch mower should mow, where the 21-inch mower should mow, all these different things, right? To try to show the crews kind of this idea of this is the most efficient way of doing it. Well, let's face it, that was just a guess, right? So what we've done is we kind of turn that into technology, right? With AI learning and everything that's going on in technology, right? We said, well, we can put in production factors, we can put in size of mowers, we can put in learning into a computer system, and basically put a base map of a property into the system, tell the system what mowers we're going to be using, 48-inch mowers, 60-inch mowers, 21-inch mowers, the number of people we have on that crew. And then what happens is we kick out a base map that says, here you go. Here's the most efficient way of mowing that property, of string trimming the property, right? The kind of the mow, trim, blow service that's out there. We're going to be growing into other services, but right now it's kind of that mow, trim, blow service because that's the biggest thing for these landscapers and the most labor intensive. And so we show them not only by quadrants how you should be doing things, but also you can look at kind of your workflow, how you should go from point A to point B, because when you think about a big HOA, a lot of the time spent on the HOA is what we call travel time, right? And that travel time is going in between when I finish this piece of grass over here to when I get to the next piece of grass that I'm going to cut. And it's amazing to see the amount of travel time we can, just from that aspect, that we can cut out of it. But then showing a proper workflow around the property really gives our users something that they can present to their crews and say, here, succeed, right? The idea is we want everyone at companies to succeed. We give tools to the sales team. We give tools to purchasing. We give tools to our admin people to be successful. But then when we go out and we sell a new property, big HOA property, 20 acres of property, and we sell it for, it's going to take 100 hours to mow, we walk out to the crew with the timesheet and we go, here, do it in 100 hours. We don't give them any plan. We don't tell them how to do it. We just say, here, do it. And then when they come back and they do it in 120 hours, we go, what the heck is wrong with you, right? And it's like, wait a minute, I didn't set them up for success. So how could I be looking at them and going, why did it take you 20 more hours than what we budgeted for that property? So the whole idea is we want to take, and again, rather than make this a very manual process, because quite frankly, the people that did it manually never got it done, had half of their properties done, and it was a very labor intensive. So they were spending a lot of money on managers doing it. Why not just plug this into a software? Even before day one that you go out and maintain this property for the first time, you can hand your crew a plan, just like you do a design plan if you're doing a design build, right? You don't send the landscapers out there and go, well, there's all the materials, get it installed. And they go, well, how am I supposed to do it? Right? You give them a plan, right? So the idea is now day one, I have a plan for these guys. Here you go. Go out and maintain the property, and this is how you maintain it. And that's the whole key to it, right? Is let's set these people up for success as well. And so in a nutshell, that's kind of our phase one system. I'll let Sean talk a little bit about kind of what phase two is. I know, because I know that's an exciting piece of what we do, because it's not only about giving them a plan and sending out, but it's then understanding whether or not they're doing the plan, right? Are you maintaining the property the way we planned for you to maintain the property? So I'll let Sean kind of talk about that.
And Sean, before you jump in on this, I want to get to step two, and I know what you're going to be talking about in a minute, so I'm excited. But real quick, I want to just unpack a little bit, Brian, of what you just said and open up this idea for the listeners to just reflect on it for a minute and just think of, okay, how many maintenance properties do you maintain? We have a book of about 150 properties. And if I think about it truly, how many of those properties do we have some type of an SOP of where to park the truck, where to mow from start to finish, where are we going to start string trimming, where are we going to end, how many hours are we going to be on the blower versus, and I'll be honest, guys, and I know a lot of my team members listen to this podcast, I would give us maybe like a 20% of our properties have some kind of plan. But the other 80%, well, like Jared or Juan or Federico knows this property so well, we don't need a plan. He's got it dialed. Well, what happens when Federico gets promoted to an account manager? And all of a sudden we're trying to figure this out and figure that out. And we've gone through these growth challenges. And what we've realized, again, I'll use the 80-20 rule, 80% of our properties, the processes, the recipe, the plan lives in the head of our foreman or crew leaders. And we're in a way held hostage to our employees if they decide to leave, if they want to get promoted, if they want to move crews. We typically will push back on them because as an owner or your operations manager, you don't want to deal with the headache of trying to train someone new. It's like this, like if I told you guys, hey, I want you to bake a cake and I showed you a picture of what I wanted it to look like, and that's it. No recipes, no anything, no how long should I bake it? What temperature? All of that. Like that'd be really hard to replicate. Yet when the cake doesn't come out like the picture, we go to the guys and we yell at them. So I think this is a much bigger problem. And if we're being honest with ourselves and the listeners out there being honest with themselves, you know, there's a massive issue right now with how much information we're giving our crews doing the work and the expectations we have for them. So Sean, before we go into the solution that you guys have created, you've worked in the industry, you have advised people. I mean, what is your take on this issue? Is it better in some of like the East Coast? I mean, I'm on the West Coast of California and I'm just speaking for what I know, but what are you seeing out there, Sean?
When I was with Aspire, I covered, really the Northeast. Since coming on with Top Green, now I'm having some conversations Southeast, right, West Coast. And, with some of the water challenges that are going on in the West Coast, it's different, right? They're looking more at, pruning of sustainable shrubs and these kinds. So there's different concepts of what's most important from time management. But overall, to your point, the 80-20 rule, I would say 80% of the companies aren't really planning that great, right? And there might be 20% out there that are. There's no standard, right? Some will say, hey, we do a PowerPoint with color coded a little bit with this is mowing, this is, some trimming. We don't require it. Some of our senior guys do it, because it's the way they've always done it. Or maybe it's only for particular properties that are over a certain dollar amount that we see as critical. But there's no easy way to do it across the organization to make sure that there's a standard that everybody is expected to kind of meet.
Let me touch on that point you made, Justin, about your best crew leader that really knows the property, right? And when he goes away, the thing we're finding out is with the companies that we're working here early in the launch of our system is that we're doing this planning on properties, and this is kind of the segue into Sean, is we're doing planning on their properties, and we're not only using the properties that their best crew leader is on, but also the guys that are struggling, right? That don't have the plans. This guy's got it down. He's got it figured out. The thing we're finding out is that we're able to still find 20% efficiency, even on those properties where it's the guy that we think has really got it dialed in. And actually we're able to see kind of where he's making his mistakes, kind of from what we're calling crew intel, right? And that is this idea of mapping kind of their workflow around the property. So we're finding another 20% efficiencies, even in those good guys that we're like, well, I don't have to worry about Brian because he's got it figured out on that property. He does, right? He's doing a lot better than Sean is on his properties. No offense, Sean, but he still doesn't have it 100% dialed in. Let's get him 100% dialed in. And so that's the other thing that we're seeing as we're doing these plans.
So Sean, unpack this for us. You're helping with the plans and everything, but what about the actual operations and getting data from the field? What are you guys doing in that area?
So I'm gonna kind of follow up Brian's point there and kind of what you're talking about to lead into it. But what we often see is those early months, even properties that you've had, right, are kind of slow to get started, to get out there, right? It's like you're getting back into the swing of things. Maybe you do something differently than you did last year for whatever reason, and you're eating up some of those hours early in the year, right, in the first 2 or 3 months, and then you start to see it really start to hum maybe end of July, August, and it's like, okay, they're hitting their budgeted hours all the time. But by the time we get to the end of the year, because of those early months, right, where we ate a bunch of hours and we weren't operating at our peak, what we're seeing is maybe you're like, hey guys, so we only you only got like 14 or 15 hours out there, right? We got to get it done. And then maybe some spots are missed, right? Maybe some things aren't done. So the second piece to this is wearable tech. Safety vests, right, can be branded for the company, all these things, right? Same things vests that you'd see out there today. Crews put them on. There's no on off. Don't turn it on. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to play with it. You just get done. You charge it. You get in the morning. You put it on. You go out and you do your work. So what that's allowing us to do, and this isn't a punitive thing, right? We want to make this very clear. It's not to see, hey, where did you go to lunch? Hey, you shouldn't be eating that. Hey, you shouldn't go here. It's about understanding, since we put a plan in place, are we following the plan? And if we are following the plan and we're not hitting hours, then we look at, how are our guys actually performing? What is their production rate, right? Because the vest is going to be able to tell us with a beacon on the equipment. Let's say Brian's got the string trimmer, right? Our company, as we bid the work, we're saying, hey, for string trimming, our production rate is 1,500 linear feet an hour, right? But we look at Brian's and, he's consistently at 2,300. He's doing a heck of a job. Or he's kind of just running along. He's not really string trimming the whole time, and he's, barely, right? So we have to understand, is the quality there with the speed, or maybe he's only doing 1,000 linear feet an hour, right? And why is that the case, right? So it opens up our eyes to so many different things, right? If we apply the vest to a person and we say, this is your vest, you always wear that vest, that data that's coming back is always going to be that person's data. So when we start thinking about, how do we improve that person, right, to be able to take on more work and maybe become a crew leader, right? How is he performing, when he's out there, string trimming, doing these things? Is he following routes? Is he hitting our production factors or beating them? What's his quality like? When he's on a mower, is he covering the same square footage other guys are? Is he not? Who do we need to train? How do we train them, right? It's giving us all of these insights that we've lacked, since the beginning, right? It's really, you've never been outside of going out with a stopwatch and tell John, hey, go run that side down there with a string trimmer. I'm going to start you here. That's 1,000 feet. I'm going to stop you there. Well, that's our time. This is continuous.
Most landscape maintenance operators, and should I say salespeople, right, are basing their estimates on some kind of production rate. We're going to mow X amount of square footage. We're going to handle this much linear footage. Whatever the formula they're applying is, whoever, Brian or Sean, want to take this, but how is your average contractor getting those production rates? That's the answer. I don't, maybe every 80%, 90% of companies bid it based on production rates, but that's just a made up number that we apply based on industry standards, basically, right? What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, and that's really what it is, right? Our initial, and this is where the kind of the AI learning comes in. Initially, right, what we have in there is production factors based upon industry standards, right? And what we want to do, though, is learn what your standards are, right? And we can do that because we know how you're using a 62-inch, a 60-inch mower, a 52-inch mower, a 48-inch mower. And we can see that, and we can provide you, right? That's the extra added benefit. Plug back into Aspire or the software you're using, Element, whatever it might be. We can tell you, here's what your production factors are showing. Your production factors are showing that you're doing 72,000 square feet an hour with your 60-inch mower on average. That's the number you should be using as your production factor. So that's an extra added bonus to what we're doing. But what we're starting off with, because obviously we had to pick a starting point. That's why I tell people that are, when I used to implement software was, look, when you're pick a starting point with what you're doing. And then once we get the data, we'll learn from that data on how to make improvements, right? Technology is all about getting good data and then making improvements within your company so that you're estimating better. I was talking to a company the other day. They went from one of the highest priced companies when they would bid projects to not the lowest price, but a company that is right in line with all the other bids. Sometimes they actually are coming in as low bid, and they're hitting their margins they need to hit to run their company. How did they do that? They did that through understanding the efficiencies and how to bid their properties better. And that's what this comes down to, right? Is, as Sean mentioned in the beginning, I want to get rid of that argument of, what do you mean I didn't bid it right? I bid it with 10 hours. You don't know how to produce it. I do too know how to produce it. You didn't give me enough hours, right? That constant struggle between sales and production, right? We all know it, right? It's the argument that's been there forever. Well, we want to break down those barriers and go, here's what production can do. Sales, go sell it at that, and we'll produce it. That's the whole key to this. And going back to what Sean said and what I said before about design build, right? And this idea of understanding if they're following the plan. I used to be with a design build company, and I've worked consulting with a number of design build companies. When you think about it in that perspective, I know if the design build guys are doing the job right because I can see it, right? I can't necessarily see it because I can see where the retaining wall goes, where the paver patio goes. And I've had guys tear down retaining walls and goes, well, you didn't put that in the right spot. Tear it down. We're building it over. You got to follow the plan, guys. The plan does not show the retaining wall there. It shows it over here, right? And so the idea is, and again, we don't have enough time. If we have 150 properties as an account manager, I don't have the time to go to every property, but I can look in a system and see maybe through alerts that we're going to be providing, maybe where our guys are going off track as far as efficiencies are concerned. And again, use it as a training tool. Don't use it as something that I can go and beat somebody over the head with. Use it as a training tool. Use it as something I can go, hey guys, saw you were a little over on hours this week. Here's my recommendation on how to correct your behavior out there on the property. Instead of doing this, here, the map is showing we should be doing this. That's going to save you that extra half hour.
And to kind of follow on it a little bit, we're seeing with some of the early data we're getting back, right, on some of the vests that are in the field, you'll see somebody get on a 52-inch deck, go mow something at, 8 o'clock in the morning, right, when they get there. And then, another guy, 52-inch mower, maybe at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, goes over the same exact path. He spent an hour on the mower to go do it, right?
It happens. You wouldn't think it does, but it does.
Yeah, you could have, maybe had a bad day, or he just wasn't thinking, and maybe somebody else told him. No, maybe the guy forgot he did it in the morning. Who knows? But the thing is if you have a plan and you know where you're going every day when you go out there, I get off the truck. This is what I'm doing, right? I'm gonna to the planning piece that Brian's talking about. When we properly load these sites, right, we're gonna know who does what, when, and what order. So get off, grab the 52. As soon as I'm done with my section that I know I'm supposed to do with the 52. I should be routed back towards the truck. I'm going to grab the string trimmer, and then this is my area for the string trimmer, and that's what it is. And you can go out there and know exactly who should be where and doing what at any given time. Now, if the site isn't loaded properly and we only have one string trimmer and somebody already has it, guess what? The plan's not going to allow us to throw a string trimmer onto onto John when he's done with the 52. Well, what you can do when you're planning this is it's kind of like a sandbox environment, right? We were talking to a company the other day. They're like, we have this site, we got 4 guys on it. We're pretty sure we can do it with 3. Well, guess what? Let's throw it into the system. Let's plan it out, and let's see the optimal pieces of equipment that we need on that site for 3 guys, and let's see what that does to our hours, planned. That's what this is going to allow you to do.
I think that's huge, guys. I mean, we went from tracking no hours on any properties, and then when we onboarded Aspire in 21, we started to say, okay, now we have 28 man hours or 100 man hours, whatever it is per week, that we had a bucket of hours. And to be honest, it's kind of where our company's at today, going from no tracking and no expectations of our crews, just go out there and do a good job on 100 properties, to okay, now we have a bucket of hours for you to clock in and utilize. Just make sure the property looks good when you're done. That's, I think, the status quo today with Aspire, Element, so many of these other softwares. Most people probably have a budgeted bucket of hours per week, per month, what have you. And what we saw, just going from nothing to giving a bucket of hours, we saw roughly a 10 to 15% improvement in efficiency, which led to a 10 to 15% improvement in gross profit, which got us to a point where we can actually be profitable now that we're at like 52, 53% gross profit. Now we're profitable. The problem is, and Brian, you indicated to this, is we know our numbers so well that to continue to keep up with the profit margins we would like to see based on the cost increase of labor, we are now 30, 40, 50% in some cases higher than the competitors who are not increasing their pricing and maybe not tracking their hours very well. So now we're in this dilemma, because if we keep pricing like we're pricing, we will not grow as fast. Like maybe we'll grow 5-7%, but at K&D, our goal is 30 to 50% annual growth of recurring every year. And if we can't maintain that, then we've got to figure out a new plan. We're in this, like, literally, we're recording this in December. We're talking about 2025 right now in my boardroom. And we're trying to figure out, how do we get more competitive? Brian, you mentioned this. How do we go from the highest bid down to mid-market, or even, I'd love to be the lowest while maintaining margins. There's a big asterisk. So I've had this concept that I've been working on, which is, if you do not innovate and figure out how to do these things efficiently, some 22-year-old that just started with a pickup truck will, and they will underbid you and you will complain. And then you'll go talk to them and realize they're making 60% gross and 25% net, charging 30% less than what you're charging, because they're leveraging AI in the back end for accounting, marketing, and HR. And they're doing what you guys are talking about in the field, where they're breaking things down from a big bucket of hours down to specific tasks, going back to like lean manufacturing, right? The Toyota way, breaking down every movement in the warehouse of how to do things more efficiently. We all I think everyone listening is like, yeah, no shit, I would like to do this, but like, how do we do that? So you mentioned wearable tech, which has been a bit of a buzzword in Amazon warehouses and others. It's making its way now, thanks to you guys, into the landscape industry. When we're talking about wearable tech, I mean, my biggest question is, what are the employees going to say when we strap them up with a beacon, right? Like, I think that would be my first question. What are you guys seeing as far as pushback from the field teams? How do you manage that?
It's funny. When I joined Aspire and we were doing the phones, right, for clock in, clock outs, there was a ton of pushback. It's like, how big of a deal is it? You have a phone, just start time, stop time. You're writing it on a sheet now. Well, we don't want this. To be completely honest with you, and this is not, I expected that was going to be a huge hurdle. I haven't experienced it in most of my calls directly. Now, there are a few where we have a great conversation, and there maybe a week or two goes by. Hey, what's up? And that could be the case there, but by and large, we've had a lot of success, and there hasn't been a ton of pushback on it. It's surprising.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and again, it's really in how you communicate what you're trying to do for the company and overall, right? It's always about communication. And when you think about Aspire's tracking, they have push pins on the time entry page that tells you whether or not they were within the GPS fence when they were actually clocking in and not clocking out. Right, it's already there. I mean, I used to know a guy that worked at John Deere years and years and years ago, you mentioned manufacturing, they were doing time studies and watching how long it took him to put a nut on a bolt on a mower or on a tractor. That's been going on forever. I don't know why it's, again, we're a little bit different because we're putting people out in the field, but we still have to have a means to be able to make improvements as owners and general managers and CEOs of companies, make improvements to our companies. And one of those big things is in how we're performing the work, right? The number one asset at our company is the people and the labor. And all we're really trying to do is improve the way they're doing things, improve the success of the company, because the success of the company means success for everyone at the company, right? Back to, if I give you a plan, I'm setting you up for success. I'm not setting you up for failure, right? And that's the whole key to all this, is that this isn't about, like Sean said, when you stopped at the gas station, where you went to lunch, all these other things. This is about, how did you perform the work on the job site? And can we do something to get incrementally better on that job site? And constant improvement. I talk constant improvement all the time, the lean management. I studied that and I believe in that. We did Kaizen events where I worked, where we cleaned up shops and workflow and all of this stuff. That's just another element, right? When you talk about, how do I get in that range where I can be bidding at a competitive number, I'm not 30% higher than everyone. It goes to everything from what's my workflow and my dispatch at the shop, to what's my routing, to what's my efficiency on my job sites. And am I able to improve upon all of those things, right? This is just one element, one aspect of it, which, in my opinion, when I started talking with Sashi, because I've been in the industry so long and listening to people and actually doing job scripting or job planning myself and with other companies in the past, it's an element that's been necessary in this industry for longer than I can admit, and it just hasn't been utilized. Now it can be utilized because of technology.
I love that. And it seems like this is an opportunity for contractors who are in competitive markets to differentiate themselves from an employer standpoint. So if we can help our teams create a scorecard and a scoreboard, because look, our guys are professional athletes. I mean, these guys are walking, some of them, they're walking 20, 30,000 steps a day, maybe more. Like, they are professional athletes in the field and they want to score touchdowns. And we don't give them an opportunity really that often to score touchdowns. But if you give them the opportunity with the expectations and some kind of gamification, that is, here's your scoreboard, and you're giving them this opportunity to go meet and exceed the goals that you set out. Now they go out with this mindset of like, man, how much more landscaping can we maintain in an 8-hour period than the competition down the street? And if we can do 30, 40, 50% more, I can argue from an employer standpoint, we can pay our employees 30, 40, 50% more. And then it's like a flywheel, right? They do better, you pay them more, they see the benefit, they go out, they do even better. And then you pay them more. And all of a sudden you're paying 30, 40% more than the competition. And your guys they're not going anywhere. The other thing, Brian, you've been in the industry for so long. What do you think when you get into this mindset, when you get on the job site as an employee, a crew leader, and you're just executing down to the second? Do you think that's going to bleed into the morning rollout, the afternoon cleanup, the lunches, the gas stations? Do you think the employees are going to start to sharpen up other areas of the workflow almost automatically, just embracing that mindset?
Absolutely, because what it's becoming a part of the culture, right? The idea is we need to improve the culture, right? But the culture isn't there to understand kind of this idea of how do we create more efficient ways of doing things at our company. It's no different than having invoice assistant in Aspire so that I can invoice faster, right? Because cash flow is the key to a company's life, right? It's king, right? And so if I can see that I have invoices ready to go out today, I'm sending them out, right? Because I want to collect on that money. It's no different than the field. And it does, right? Once I start creating and showing people, and again, you mentioned kind of this increase in wage. Who's going to go anywhere if they're making 30% more money with you? You're providing them tools for success. Now they're going to start looking around the yard going, and they're going to come to you with suggestions. Hey, I'm always in a roadblock over here in the yard with the construction trucks. Can we possibly get the construction trucks to go in this direction around instead of coming in this direction? Or can we move the mulch pile over here, right? Because they're not going after the mulch pile is up in the morning as much as we are. We just need to be able to get to the mulch pile so we can get out the door 10 minutes sooner. I did a time study at the landscape company I was at, and we did all kinds of things in the yard where we were finding out that by saving the guys or getting the guys on the job site 10 minutes out of the yard 10 minutes earlier, we were basically saving the company tens of thousands of dollars every year, not meaning we were cutting back on the hours, meaning we had more billable time on our jobs, right? They're not spent. Indirect time is the killer of a company, right? It's a total killer. And if I'm not getting them out there and billing for their time, I'm basically taking money out of the company's pocket.
And I'll just add this, on average, I've done the math, a 10-minute savings for 10 employees. So 10 minutes every day. If a 10 employee company, you're going to save right around $20,000. And I should say you're going to generate $20,000 more in billable hours, because that's based on the billable rate of $50 an hour. And if you've got 100 employees, well, now it's 200 grand. And if you're charging $70 an hour, now it's 300, right? So this also is a warning, because what you're saying is the owner, the CEO, but also the operations managers, production managers, they have to be very open-minded and open to feedback from the crews if they are going to be embracing this type of innovation. Because if you're asking your teams to take on these new types of ideas and wearable tech and everything else, and then they start giving you feedback about mulch piles and rollout, and you say, you don't know what you're talking about, like, just, it's fine, leave it as is, that's going to create toxicity. So, I mean, what do you guys recommend if you're going into this? Brian's laughing because we both know what I'm talking about. This is your average landscape owner, right? Like, don't tell me how to do my job after you just basically changed everything. So how do we encourage our industry? Because I think why this isn't in our industry today is because of this lack of open-mindedness. How do we be more open-minded? I mean, this is going into like a psychology direction, but Sean, what do you think? I mean, just holistically as a human being, how do we be more open-minded when we're doing these things?
It's having that common goal, right? And understanding what we're trying to do for the organization, because part of that discussion is, right, when I'm working with, whether it's a branch manager of a large organization or an operations manager, when we go to them and we say, hey, we want to look at, the productivity of your crews, right? Well, if I'm in that role and I start seeing some things or numbers, or, we run a pilot and I'm seeing things that don't look so great, right? I have to be a part of bringing that to a higher level, right? And this is what I've been doing, right? This is what you hired me for. This is what my job is for this company, right? Is to make sure that we're operating in a certain way. So if you're not open-minded, right, and understanding that we're all trying to continuously improve ourselves, our teams, and the company, and you kind of constrict a little bit and you lose that abundance mindset, right? That we know we can always get better. And you constrict into this bubble of like, I don't want anybody to see this because this was what I was supposed to be doing this whole time. That's where you run into challenges, right? We have to understand that, hey, there's no judgment here, right? These are tools that have never been available to anybody, and you're going to see things that you never could have known, and you're going to be able to plan in a way that you could never plan before. So we're on the up and up, and we're all in this journey together, and it has to be believed. If the culture doesn't lend itself to people believing that, then they're not going to believe it if you tell them or otherwise. But if you have a good culture, people know that they're doing what's best for the company.
I think this is all about kind of leadership, right? And kind of that definition of leadership and how I perceive in my own life, kind of worked at companies. right? I gave people a vision, right? This is what I want to happen. But what I did was I basically empowered them to go out and make the decisions on how we were going to do that. And it came from every person. I used to tell my guys, try to learn one new thing every day. That's all I ask you to do, right? Sometimes it might have been a word in Spanish that I would learn. Sometimes my string trimmer guys would come to me and tell me that what they were being told on how they should do string trimming, they didn't think was right. And I said, well, tell me how it should be done. And they said, well, I think it should be done like this. And I said, okay, you prove to me that that's the right way to do it, and we'll implement it to all of the other crews that are going out every day. And they would do that. But that's what a leader does, right? A leader goes out there and just gives them a vision and says, look, we need to improve upon these things. We need to have a cleaner shop. We need to have better workflow. My guys developed the workflow plan for the yard, and it worked phenomenally, right? I just showed them the data of how much money we were losing and how much money we could improve and how much more we could bring to the bottom line if we could save that. They went out and did it, right? All the kudos goes to them, right? Not to me. I was just the guy going, hey, we got to work on this.
Well, that's leadership 101 right there, is pointing out the opportunity and then giving the team the ability and autonomy to go out and solve those problems. And you're not the one making the decisions, because we all know, you guys come from software. If you go in and say, hey, we're going to this software, here it is, and you jam it down everyone's throat, no one's going to want it. But if you let them do demos and you let them be a part of the decision, now it's the team's decision, not the CEO's or founder's decision. And I think you got to embrace this in a similar fashion, where it's like, hey guys, I think we have got an opportunity. Why don't we try this new technology out? And based on the inputs that we get, you guys come up with some outputs that can improve our operation and make us more competitive, make everybody more money, which is why we're here at the end of the day. Let's face it. We want to make money. We want to be profitable. We want to grow our businesses. And you guys are offering, I think, something that's helping achieve all three.
Yeah. You mentioned jamming software and things down people's throat, right? That's never going to be successful at a company, right? I was doing the implementation. It was early in this years of Aspire. I was doing implementation with a company down in Chicago, and I would go on site. Since I'm in Wisconsin, they were very close. I'd go on site. I was just drive down, and we'd do 3-4 hours at a time, or maybe a couple days at a time with implementation. Anyways, the owner wasn't a part of it because he was a leader, right? He was a leader in his organization, and he probably never has logged into Aspire once in his life. He's provided the reports. He's provided the information that he needs. It was on day 2 of a 2-day visit when I was down there, and he stepped into the room and he sat down quietly at the front of the table. We had a big long board table, and he waited for a little pause in the action, and he said, "Is it okay if I just say a couple words here to the team? And you own the company, go right ahead." And so he stood up and he said, "Look, I brought all of my people. I brought you into this project because you are the leaders at my organization. You are the people that help me to be successful, that help me to understand how I can improve my business. And this project is a big part of that. I made the decision to move forward with this, but you are the people that I'm trusting to implement this, to bring this to the team." He said, "I know this is going to be difficult. I know you're going to swear about this. I know you're going to cuss and call Brian names. You're going to call me names. The one thing you cannot do is when you walk out of this room, you have to put a smile on your face. And every time somebody walks up to you and says, 'How's it going in there?' you need to say, 'It's going great. This is the greatest thing ever for our company. This is the absolute best thing we could do. We're going to be so successful. We're going to make so much money. This is going to be great.'" And he says, "You know why you're going to say that? Because that's the person you're going to be training next. And if you walk out of this room and say, 'It's miserable. God, I hate this system. It sucks. I don't ever want to see it again,' guess what that person's going to do? They're going to think the system sucks long before they even open it up. And then it's going to be the most difficult task in the world." So he said, walk out, smile, tell them how great it is, and your job is going to be that much easier. They're one of the most successful companies on the software. well, mainly because I trained them, but sidebar, the other thing is because of that message, right? Because the team went out and they smiled and they said, this is what we're doing. That's what change is all about, right? Change is all about this leader presenting a message of go out. We made a decision for the company. It's going to improve the company. It's going to make us better, more successful so that everyone can enjoy the success.
That's such a great message right there. I completely agree. I just wanted to let that sit there for a minute because I think that's true leadership. And not just as the CEO, the owner, right? But the leadership team or the implementation team, whether it's software or it's any change, the team that's in charge of that change is excited and opportunistic and positive about the change. No matter how good or bad the software is or whatever you're doing, it's probably going to be successful. And vice versa, no matter how great the tool is, if you're negative about it and you talk negative, it's probably going to end up as a failure. And I think we can probably apply that to anything in our lives. I don't really believe in this idea that you can just affirmations of anything you want in the life, just think about it and it'll happen. But if you constantly, think about something in a positive notion and take actions to get there, you're more likely to achieve your goals rather than if you just are constantly negative. That's never going to happen. I'm never going to hit 8 figures in revenue. I'm never going to get to 100 employees. Then you'll never get there. But if you're constantly saying, I'm going to be $100 million company one day, I'm going to have 1,000 employees, we're going to be the best company, blah, blah, blah. Like your chances of accomplishing that, I think, go up tremendously. So Brian, I appreciate you sharing that real life story with probably one of the earlier onboardings of Aspire. I think I might know the name that you're talking about, but if it's the same guy, he's a hell of a leader. Anyway, you guys, as we bring this podcast to a close, and I say as we land the plane, I've got a little landing the plane checklist I go through. And one of those checklist items I want to get from you guys is the trade secret. And the trade secret for us is on this podcast. It's our opportunity to share the experiences that shaped us today. Is there something that you guys want to share with the audience, whether it's a lessons learned through experience? I mean, Brian, you just gave us a gem there, but is there, a phrase, a word, or a quick saying that you guys want to share that is your trade secret that you can't learn in a book and you can only learn through experience, failures, and hard work?
Our journeys are all different, right? And, in our personal lives and our work lives. And I think the one thing for me is perseverance, right? I heard this, and this I might have been in a book. I don't have bad days, right? I have great days and I have days, right? And that's it. Because even on our worst day, there's things that we can learn to then continue to have good days. And I try to apply that to everything that I've been through, right? Whether it's personal relationships, work, and just overall improvements of myself. So persevere. We all go through challenges in each facet of our life. How do we keep pushing and how do we get to the ultimate goal? And if we don't have a plan to get there, it's much harder to persevere.
And mine probably as well was probably from something I read or heard or whatever, but it was really kind of why I got into software in the industry and really, really understood how important software was in the success of a company. Was what can be measured can be improved, right? But without the data, right, I can't make those improvements. So if I can measure something, see what that measurement is, compare it against a plan like we're talking about, and then go out and understand how we can improve upon that, right? Because we do have a plan in place. We know how long it should take the guys to mow the property. We know the direction they should go in. We know that they should all start at this point and end at the same time, so that I don't have 3 guys standing around smoking cigarettes while the last string trimmer is coming in or blower is coming in and he's a half hour later, right? I want to understand that idle time is non-productive time too. And so if it can be measured, it can be improved. And that's, again, lean management. It's 101. It's all those things, but it's really something that, like I said, I saw the positive from technology from that standpoint. And I will continue to be, even though I'm consulting with landscape companies, with which I love to death because I just love being in the dirt, digging around with these guys, trying to teach them how to improve their companies. It's really, I'll never get my toes out of technology either in this industry because this industry is starving for for technology, and I believe that there's a lot of great companies out there that are bringing some great things to this industry. And like you said, that 22-year-old, you better be watching over your shoulder,
Yeah.
Justin, because that 22-year-old is coming behind you at 30% less, and his guys are getting paid 30% more, and you don't want them stealing all your business.
To that point as well, right, is the 22, 23-year-old that's connected to private equity, right?
Oh gosh.
Because that's the other, right? You got these guys coming up that are able to do it for much less. And then you have, these organizations that understand the importance of technology. They've maybe rolled it out in another industry, right? And they've been able to improve margin 2, 3, 4 points, and they see a huge opportunity here in this industry, right? So if they can go out and they can acquire companies that have established a name, that worked really hard for 30 years, right, and establish a really good name, and buy that company, and then keep that hard work, but now eke out 5 or 6 percentage points, right? That's the other end of it. So you're kind of getting squeezed in the middle, right? You're a good company, and hey, we're not as bad as that company. We're okay. It's time to start thinking of, we're not as bad as that company, but we want to be the best. That's what this technology allows you to do.
I think we're there as an industry, right? That mid-level market where you're not great, you're not horrible, but your prices are competitive. Like, that zone is going away, and that's where 80% or more of the contractors are living right now. And this is the opportunity. This industry is starved for technology, and it's not because there's a lack of available tech, although I think that is one of the issues. There's a lack of adoption at the contractor level. And there's this hesitation. I talk to a lot of contractors with the podcast and other things I'm doing, and there's just this lack of adoption. And they're like, we'll do it next winter. And then they get into winter and they're right. We've all heard that as you guys as software sales. That's the normal thing. Like, wait till winter, the winter comes, like, we're kind of busy. Let's do it in spring. And then, anyway, now's the time, guys. If you're listening to this and you're thinking about checking out some innovative tech, get a hold of Sean and Brian. And to that note, Sean, where can people find and get a hold of you guys to learn more about this wearable tech and what you guys are doing in the industry?
Yeah, so obviously LinkedIn, all website, everything's linked in there. My contact information, work email, cell phone. Being in sales, I'm not on the other side, so all my stuff's available, right? If you need to reach me, you can reach me. So cell's on there, everything. The website's topgreen.ai, right? And you can kind of see everything that we're working on. Yeah, I mean we're running a lot of calls, a lot of early interest. We're early stages. So start thinking about what that dream scenario is, right? And let's have a conversation.
All right. Well, that's the last part of my checklist. I'm going to make sure those links are in the show notes for you guys listening. Get a hold of Sean, get a hold of Brian. I'll have their LinkedIn profiles below. Follow them. They're both very active. And look, guys, if you had an enjoyable time on the podcast and you listen to the TradesTalk, give us a follow, give us a subscription. Stay on point. We've got great guests coming out like Sean and Brian from Top Green. You guys, it's been a great episode. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. All right, guys, that's another episode of TradesTalk in the book. Thanks so much for listening to the entire episode. Maggie and I do this as a passion project. So if you have a chance, please hit the subscribe button, share with one friend, and leave us a review. It goes a long way. And if you know any guests that you want to have on the TradesTalk podcast, make sure to reach out, send us a DM on socials, or get in touch with us. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day.